Hi everyone, and welcome to this GCSE practice question looking at the 16 mark question, which is on the conflict and tension in Asia paper. It's very similar as well to the question on the migration paper. So the way that you're going to learn to answer the question in this video is very useful for how you answer the question in the migration question too. So it's a 16 mark question, which is quite a chunk of the paper, so it's really important to get this right. It's also good for just general essay writing and writing for argument too. There's also an extra 4 marks for spelling, punctuation and grammar, so this is in total a 20 mark question. So it's important that we master this question in order to give us the best possible chance of doing well in our exams. So the question that we're practicing today is, TV and media coverage was the main reason why the US failed to win the war in Vietnam. How far do you agree with this statement? So you can see initially then, one of the first things to identify is that the question has put forward a position. And the question is essentially asking, why did America lose the war in Vietnam? And it's put forward its own factor. So this is a causation question looking at what caused the end of the war, and it's putting forward the idea that it was the TV and media coverage which was the main reason why this happened, the most important reason why this happened. But as we know in history, things don't just happen with just one cause or one factor. It's going to actually include a lot of factors, but what we're deciding as historians is which factor was the most important. So in order to answer this question, you can plan out your answer like I've demonstrated here. So the first thing that you need to talk about in the question is the question factor. So you need to be able to argue why TV and media coverage ended the Vietnam War. Then you need to identify 2 other factors. If you're tight for time, 1 might be okay, but you need 2 factors in order to show off your historical understanding. So for a second factor, what else could have caused the end of the war in Vietnam? So you could say things like the success of the Viet Cong. So America lost because the enemy was just so good, for example. Factor 3, you could talk about international opinion of the Vietnam War or something like that as well, or the failure of the presidency too. And then what you need to do is you need to do your evaluation. So your evaluation is your last paragraph where you're linking the factors together and showing relative importance. So for example, if you had said that in the first paragraph, because you're talking about the question factor, that TV and media coverage was the main reason, you need to say, how does that connect to the Viet Cong's tactics? So because of the Viet Cong's tactics, it meant that America was losing the war, which was further highlighted by the media, which exposed the credibility gap and the lies and the rhetoric of the American president and so forth. So that's what that evaluation paragraph is like. And that's where you get the top marks, if you're not just talking about the individual factors, but also saying how those factors interrelate and how those factors connect and the relative importance of each of them as well. So the way that you lay this question out then is you think, okay, so it's saying how far do you agree with the statement? So you need to basically, your keys to unlock success are draw the factors triangle out into your plan. This is important because it sounds counterproductive to plan because it feels like the exam is going so quickly. But if you plan your answer, it means that you end up writing your answer quickly, but also with more sense too. So you're thinking about what you're arguing, and then that just means that your answer is just automatically going to be better. You will get more marks if you plan. You also need to make sure that you're writing argumentatively. So what I mean by that is you're using the AEE structure. So argument, evidence, explanation, and judgment. The judgment is important because that's where you're justifying how far you agree with a statement. Is it the TV reporting? That's the main reason. Or is it actually the success of the Viet Cong, for example? So if you're thinking about what that means, so your argument, you're putting forward an argument when you're writing. You're saying what your opinion of something is. And what you need to do, if you're going to say your opinion about something, you need to prove your opinion. So you need to put forward evidence which proves that opinion. So when we're thinking about evidence, it's your contextual knowledge, but your specific contextual knowledge using SPAG, okay? And then you have to explain how your evidence proves the argument that you've put forward. Then once you've done that, you say, okay, well, overall then my judgment is this. So your judgment is affirming what you've said in your argument and saying, I've proved that with my evidence, with my explanation, and therefore my opinion is correct, more or less. Your conclusion as well, which I spoke about earlier, when you're evaluating, you need to explain how the factors may link together and justify which one is the most important. So that's like your most sophisticated answers would be doing that, which I hope we're all going to aim for. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to talk through how do you answer this question, and I'm going to demonstrate to you, I'm going to model to you the answer through one paragraph, and then you're going to write your own second paragraph and upload it for me to mark for you. And if you would like to do more than that, you're more than welcome if you want to try and attempt a full answer. So for the first paragraph then, I always think it's good to rephrase the question, because you're thinking about, so the question is saying TV and media coverage was the main reason why the US failed to win the Vietnam War. So in your first paragraph, what you're answering is, how did TV and media coverage contribute to the end of the Vietnam War? If you do not mention the question factor, your answer will be capped. It doesn't matter if you write 2 pages of absolute brilliance. If you've not mentioned the question factor, you will lose marks, and you cannot get more than half marks. So we're going to do this one together then. So how did the TV and media coverage contribute to the end of the Vietnam War? So argument is, TV and media coverage was the main reason why the US failed to win the war in Vietnam, because the media highlighted the credibility gap to the American people. So you can see very clearly there, my argument is there, saying that TV and media was the main reason, because I do think that that was the biggest reason. And I've also said why it was important. So putting a criteria there. So the media highlighted the credibility gap. So I've made this argument and I now need to prove it. So the evidence that I put forward is, for example, Walter Cronkite was the first important journalist to break to the American public on TV that the war was unwinnable. In a broadcast in February 1968, when Johnson saw the report, he said, if I've lost Cronkite, I've lost the country. And you can see I've put in bold there the specific contextual knowledge that is proving my point. So you need to mention people, you need to mention statistics, you need to mention dates and events if you've got them as well, okay? So that proves it, because it's saying even the president acknowledged that the media is a problem. If he's lost the media, if he's lost Cronkite, then he's lost the country. So I need to now prove that, right? I need to essentially explain how my evidence proves my argument. So I've written, this shows that the media had more power in persuading the American people about the legitimacy of the Vietnam War. Cronkite was said to be the most trusted man in America. Before the Vietnam War, wars were censored, and so the reality of war was often far removed from the people. However, Vietnam was the first televised war, and is referred to as the living room war, the war Americans watched from their living rooms. Once the media lost faith in the war, the American people lost faith in the war. The government could no longer claim it was necessary and noble to be in Vietnam. Once the people turned against the war, America had to commit to ending the war, even without a military victory. So you can see there, I'm explaining how my evidence proves my argument, and I'm elaborating on that evidence. So essentially putting my analysis in there, so saying that this is because people in America were watching this in their living rooms, the fact that the media was so important in shaping the hearts and minds of the people, and the consequences of that too. So now the last thing I need to put forward is the judgment, where I'm essentially linking it back to the question and justifying why this factor is the main reason. So if you didn't think that this factor was the main reason, you would say this is an important reason, but it's not the most important. And it's about basically just making sure that your judgment makes sense throughout, and you're being very clear about what you think and justifying that. That's one of the reasons why planning is so important, because it just helps you gather your thoughts and think what do you actually think about this question. So because I do think that this is the main reason, here is my judgment. Media coverage was therefore the main reason why the US failed to win the war, because the media influenced the views of the American people, which spurred the anti-war movement. So anti-war movement could be the third factor then. I should have said that earlier actually. So I think for this, the 3 most important factors is, for example, the TV and media, the success of the Viet Cong, and also the anti-war movement. So those can be your 3 factors. And you can see here how even in the first paragraph, I've linked media to the anti-war movement. So essentially my argument is the anti-war movement was definitely a blow to the American government and a major reason why America had to leave the Vietnam War. But the reason why the anti-war movement was so powerful was because the media had done such a strong job at essentially communicating the things that were happening in Vietnam, which angered more people and more ordinary people too. So it meant that it wasn't just students going out and protesting. It meant that the majority of people in the public, the Vietnam War was actually something that they were upset about, something that they didn't want to be in anymore. And because of that, they could choose at the polling station, they could choose at the election a president who would bring America out of the war. And we saw the success of that when we looked at Nixon's victory on his back when he promised peace with honor with Vietnam. So it's about kind of linking those things together and saying how one factor is more important than the other because it leads into the success of the other factors. So now it's your turn. You need to write your own paragraph and you need to think about everything that I've spoken about, thinking about the way that my model answer is, and there's even a structure there. So you could say for you, this next one, a lesser important reason was, and then you explain, and then you do your evidence, your explanation, and your judgment. So just fill in that paragraph, and once you do that, just upload it. Thank you.